Technology, it's always your friend. If just one quick note on the beginning, if any of the speakers are not up front here in the chair, maybe you could come up and grab one of the seats. And if anybody else is particularly tired, we have a few seats left over here. Nobody wants to sit in the front of the class, but there won't be a quiz. Hello and welcome to the launch of Hurricane Igor in the Eye of the Storm. I'm Russell Wongursky. I'm the general manager of Creative Books. And in this job, I get to go to a lot of book launches. I get to go to the book launches of all of the creative authors. And I also, because it's an interest of mine, get to go to launches of Newfoundland authors just about any time there is one. I've never been to a launch like this that's so much of a group effort, that represents so many people. Representatives from the Telegram, from the military, from the provincial government and provincial charities, as well as our hosts here at chapters. And in a way, that's sort of symbolic of the response that there was to Hurricane Igor. Scores of people, from officials to everyday people in their homes and around their homes and working for their neighbors, played a part in dealing with this emergency, and they're all represented in this book. They're represented in this book not only in the pictures that you see of them, but in the people who actually took some of these photographs. This is not a book that that includes photographs only by professional photographers sent out on assignment to take those pictures. It's also photographs by individuals of their neighbors' homes, of the experiences they were having at the moment they were having them. It's symbolic, I think, of how we were all in this event together, and how this book can bring back some of those memories and some of the fact that we worked together to get through it. There are far too many speakers today for me to keep talking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly introduce speakers, and as they come up, they'll tell you a little bit of the part they played in the events as they unfolded. First of all, I'd like to invite Carrie Han, the managing editor of the Telegram, to come forward and explain to us a little bit about how this book came about. Carrie?
Thanks, Russell. Good afternoon, everybody. Members of the military, thanks for coming out. Since 1879, the Telegram has been chronicling the life and times of Newfoundland and Labrador. Our newspaper has acted as this province's written record, documenting the triumphs, trials, tragedies in word, print, and now on the new medium, the World Wide Web. The Telegram and our network of transcontinental weekly newspapers pride ourselves in providing the most current, in-depth, and extensive coverage of news to its readers, both in paper and electronically. And our coverage of Hurricane Igor, as you can see here, is testament to that philosophy. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are no stranger to harsh weather. It's part of what makes us who we are. However, I think the extreme devastation that hit the eastern and central portions of the province on September 21st even caught the most die-hard pessimist off guard. I know it caught me off guard for sure. But I'm proud to say that the reporters, photographers, and editors of the Telegram, the Charter, the Compass, the Southern Gazette, the Packet, the Beacon, and the Pilot not only stepped up to the plate that day, but went beyond the call of duty. Our coverage of this 100-year storm, both immediately online on our websites and following in our newspapers, was unprecedented. Our staff endured the devastation and destruction to provide our loyal readers with the most current and accurate information available. And in cases where reporters and photographers were unable to access certain communities due to road washouts, our own readers in communities that were affected stepped up to the plate as well and provided us with spectacular images of Igor's wrath from within their own communities, many photos which are contained in this book here today. And for that, I am truly grateful. It took probably a week for any sense of normality to return to not only the Telegram newsroom, but newsrooms across the province. It was only then that we had an opportunity to take a step back and look at the information we had gathered during and after the hurricane. When the dust settled, literally, our staff was looking at a collection of more than 6,000 Hurricane Igor photos from our own staffers, and again from our readers that had submitted photos to us, mainly online. Images you will see in this book we are launching today chronicle the horror and devastation of the storm, as well as the subsequent sense of community and hope. And if you look at the book, The book is done in such a way, it follows a chronological pattern, and again, ending with the sense of encouragement at the end, certainly with the aid of the military that are here today, represented here today. So all of a sudden it hit us, what are you going to do with 6,000 images? And I have to emphasize, and I heard a few people comment today, 6,000 outstanding images. What is the best way to repurpose this material to aid in the chronicling of this colossal event in Newfoundland and Labrador's history? You publish a book. A book that not only educate and capture this infamous event in time, but act as an avenue to raise funds for the victim of the storm. So on behalf of the editorial employees and readers that played a key role in our hurricane coverage, I can honestly say I'm proud, extremely proud, of what we have here today, the end result. While I am truly proud of every editor, reporter, photographer that played a part in covering this event, I would be remiss if I did not single out one person, Barbara Dean-Simmons. Barb is here with us today. Barb, as we all know her, is one of our longest-serving weekly newspaper editors. She has guided the Packet in Clarenville for many years, turning it into one of the best weekly newspapers in all of Canada. So I should not have been surprised by Barb's coverage of Hurricane Igor. In case you don't know, Barb lives on Random Island, one of the regions hardest hit by Igor, and many of the photos contained in this book are from Random Island, many of them which taken by Barb. Shortly after the storm hit, she found herself without power, water, faced personally with flooding, and was literally cut off from road access to the rest of the province. So what does Barb do at the height of the storm? She heads out into the eye of the storm, camera in hand. Despite the fact she had no electricity, she used a generator to power her laptop and cell phone, directing her staff at the Packet office in Clarenville, and used an internet turbo stick to file copying photos to not only the Packet, but to all of the papers, including Telegram across the province. As a result of this tremendous effort, Barb was the obvious choice to write the introduction to this book, and an excellent introduction it is. I encourage all of you to take a look at it once the ceremony is over. So without further ado, I give you the hurricane tamer herself, Barbara Dean-Simmons.
I started to read a book this summer for my summer vacation, and I chose somebody that I hadn't read for a while. I chose Stephen King. And the book I chose was The Dome. And for anybody of you who haven't read it, it's a story about a fictional town in Maine which one day is suddenly shut off from the rest of the world by an insidious glass dome. They have no communications, no power, no water, no way to get out to the outside world. I was on page 888 on September 20th. I went to bed that night thinking, what would I do? What would anybody do if we were faced with such an event? And then the rain came. I woke up that morning. Actually, my cat woke me up because the basement was flooded. And I realized that we had had a little bit more water than we'd normally have. So while my husband ran to get the sump pump, I ran for the camera and I headed out, intending to get to Elliott's Cove because I had heard there was a washout. I only got as far as my neighbor's driveway because it was being washed out at that moment. So I turned around and I headed to Hickman's Harbor, thinking I'd get at least to that community to find out what was going on. I got as far as, and I think one of the pictures in the book shows the flooding at the local takeout, the Brookside takeout. The water was halfway up to the walls then. I kept driving, intending to get a little further. I got as far as the local gas bar and I realized that the water was just flooded the road and I wasn't going to get any further. So I grabbed a few photos and went back home to wait for the rain to stop and to rip apart our front page for that week, because we knew that we needed to have the Hurricane Igor story on our front page. We had wrapped up the paper on Monday night. Tuesday, we knew we had to change the front story. And then I waited, and like a lot of people thought that we have heavy rain, we have a storm, this will pass, things will get back to normal. It wasn't until my son took the camera at 4 o'clock when the rains abated and went outside and walked our local roads to get me some pictures that I realized this was immense. the roads had been obliterated, both east and west of me. And still, I don't think anybody had a sense of how big this was or how much damage had been caused until the following day when my son took the camera again and headed down to Hickman's Harbor. A trip that normally would take him about 15 minutes on his bike took him 3 hours. I guess what was most surreal about the day after the storm was the lack of noise. There were no cars. There was no way for anybody to get around. And I think it was later that afternoon that I realized we were in serious trouble. We had no power. Our landlines went down on Tuesday afternoon. And as Carrie said, I used a generator, a laptop, and a turbo stick to maintain my communication with the outside world. Meanwhile, my mother, my parents who live in Hickman's Harbor had no communication. Their landlines were down and they were outside of cell phone service. So you get to thinking about how long this will last and how will we manage through it all. What I saw in the week of Hurricane Igor was nothing short of phenomenal. In terms of the devastation, it's hard to imagine. Even now, I think back and I wonder what it was and how it happened. What I saw the day after Igor was I saw people starting to pull together. I can't say enough about the little businesses around the area, the small contractors who got to their equipment from areas where they were cut off. I know one fellow who, from my area, actually had to be hoisted by rope across some of the gaps in the roads to get to his backhoe, which was parked in a gravel pit near my house. And what they did from that moment on and the hours they put in, these guys just deserve a big pat on the back. It was amazing, again, to see people come together and help each other out, because we realized on day 2 and day 3 that we only had each other. I also want to commend the military. I think that when those guys showed up, everybody breathed a big sigh of relief, because we knew that they were bringing help that we desperately needed. They're still in the area today, helping out and doing what they can with the structures they've built. And I just want to say that we were so happy to see you guys arrive. We can't thank you enough. I think we learned a lot of lessons from Igor, and I'm hoping it will never happen again. In my 30 years with the newspaper industry and with the Packet, I can honestly say I've never seen anything like it. It's the biggest story I've ever covered, and probably will be the biggest story I will ever cover. And I think, I hope that the book that's been produced as a result of the photographs and the information we collected during that week will be a reminder of what we went through and how we all pulled together to make it through. And I thank you very much, and I thank Carrie for the opportunity to write the foreword to the book, and I hope you all enjoy it.